This is Martin Clarkson, professor in communication studies at Colorado State University and the director of the CSU Center for Public Deliberation. This is a video I'm doing working with National Issues Forum just to provide some kind of technical background on utilizing Zoom for small group discussions or national issues forums. So I'm going to go pretty quick through things, but the assumption is you can kind of stop, pause, and ideally kind of follow through doing some of the same things I'm doing. So I'm going to go to Zoom first. I'm going to show some of the settings you can set up on Zoom and then how to set up a meeting, and then actually go into a meeting and show you some hints about using some of the additional features during the meeting itself, right? So I already have a Zoom account. Zoom accounts are free. The free version only allows you to do a 45-minute meeting. So do a full 2-hour NIF form or something like that, then you will have to at least pay for the lower level per month for Zoom. So I'm signing in. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here when you sign in and go to account management and then account settings. And there's a whole group of settings here. I'm not going to walk through all of these. I'm just going to highlight about 4 or 5 things that are particularly useful to think about in terms of small group facilitated discussions. Some of these might already be on, and some I do know that you have to turn on and you haven't turned them on already. So the first thing is the top thing is the waiting room. I do think it's useful to use the waiting room. What that means is when someone clicks your Zoom link, instead of going directly into the meeting, they're first taken to a waiting room. You as the host see that there's people waiting and you can let them in one at a time. That allows you, as the meeting's beginning, to kind of manage that, do some sound checks with people as they kind of come in versus have everyone in at the same time. Plus some security control if needed, right? Then we're going to go down kind of quite a bit. All of these things are pretty interesting, so you can kind of play with some of the other ones. Again, I'm just going to highlight a few that are specifically useful to this as we go through. We're going to get to co-host and polling here. All right, so the co-host, which I do think is something that's not by default on, you have to turn it on. That allows you, you would be the host of the meeting, and that allows you to make other people co-hosts. This is particularly important if you're going to have some help facilitating or if you're potentially going to use breakout groups, which we'll show you how to do that. So turning on that feature, that allows them to make them a co-host, and then they have some special features. They can mute people, they can share their screen, and so forth. Also like to turn polling on. I haven't used this much, but if you want to do a quick poll, you can set up polls beforehand and pull them up. You could potentially set up a poll or two about each of the approaches just to kind of get the juices going and kind of people responding to them, or you can do one on the fly if you like. And then screen sharing is probably typically on automatically. I do like to set it that hosts only can share their screen. That does work with the co-hosts as well. That way participants can't show their screen without your permission. Even with the hosts only, you can give someone permission to share the screen if there's some reason that a participant would want to share their screen. And then we're going to go on down a little bit more till we get to the advanced features and breakout room. You're going to want to turn on breakout room for a couple different reasons. One, obviously, if you are going to use the breakouts, what we do with the CPD, we tend to maybe have 30 or 40 people show up to the meeting. We start together all in a large group. We do the introductions. We explain, say, the issue book and the ground rules. Then we send people to breakout rooms with a facilitator in each room. So if you're going to do that, you're going to need breakout rooms. Also a good idea to, even if you're not going to break out into groups, you can have a breakout room kind of as your technical problem room, right? So if someone's having technical problems, instead of taking everyone's time, you can kind of send them to that breakout room with someone to help them get them to resolve the technical problems while they're in the room before you kind of bring them back. So it's essentially like taking someone from the table to the side and kind of working with them one-on-one before you let them rejoin the meeting. So those are the only kind of main features that you need to kind of go in and set up that we use quite a bit. So now we're actually going to go to schedule a meeting. So that link is one of the top links. When you schedule a meeting, it's all pretty simple. You're picking the title. You can do a description if you like. You pick the exact time that you're happy to do it. You can require registration. We haven't used that before. We tend to do registrations through like a Google Doc form. We do like getting people to register for the meeting. That way, I don't like to share the Zoom link publicly. That's a little bit dangerous if the Zoom link's just out there. There's actually, groups that collect Zoom links and share them and then Zoom bomb and get people to show up to try to mess up your meeting. So we like people to register, and then you can send a direct email to people with the Zoom link. So you can use Zoom for the registry, or you can use something else. I tend not to use passcodes that much, but you can if you like, and you can create your passcode. And here's where if you want the waiting room on or off, right? So most of those features, I keep them pretty set. So once you've set the meeting, it gives you your meeting code, right? So you got your invite link now for people that you can share. If you want more information, you can go to the copy, and this is all the data that you might see when you get invited to someone, including the phone calls, right? But really, all people need now is that Zoom link right now. Right? So that sets your meeting. I'm actually going to start this meeting right now. That way, we can kind of jump into an actual Zoom call and play and show you some of these new features that we turned on and how that might work. So first thing, as you're joining in, you always see you have this option of doing computer audio or a phone call audio. Most people probably do computer audio. I've actually bought about I think it was a $15, $20 USB microphone, which gives me much better sound. It just happens to be my laptop. The internal microphone didn't work too well, and I was having problems. But you should also think, particularly if you're running the meeting, sometimes it's a little bit better to use the phone option. And basically what you do is you're just calling that number on your cell, giving the participant ID, giving the meeting ID and participant ID. It will link your phone, the audio from your phone, with your video. So then that way, if you're having internet problems, if your Wi-Fi is a little flaky or something like that, instead of it kind of messing up the meeting, your audio will still be there, right? You can actually turn off your video and still run the meeting through audio if necessary. It's also kind of a nice option if you have people that are having technical difficulties. You can kind of explain to them how to do the phone call. So even if you pick computer audio to begin with, which I'll do here, you could always go over here to the sound and switch it, right? So you can kind of switch to phone audio if you like, and that gives you that phone number for people to kind of go through. All right, so we're in the meeting now. I'm going to show you a couple quick things. Normally when I'm in the meeting, I like to both have the participant list, so you click participants, it gives you the participant list up there, and I like to have chat on, and that normally automatically sets it up as a kind of a full screen, 2 options up there. If you have dual screens, I've got an extra screen here I'm not using right now. But when I'm running meetings, I like to arrange things kind of differently. You could actually click this little down arrow in each box and pop it out. That just gives you a separate box. You can kind of move and size and kind of put wherever you want. So you can go pop these both up and kind of organize them like you want on a second screen or whatever. Or if you just want to keep it all together, you can put them back. You do these little 3 dots and you merge, and that puts it back all together as one as you're kind of going through. So I'm going to invite some people now. So you can just click the invite button. It gives you kind of go straight to your email, or I tend to just do copy link, invite link. That just gives you that link that you need. You can also kind of quickly come up here. This gives you the information of your meeting, and you can copy the URL there. But I'm going to switch here. I'm going to send this link to myself and to my wife. So we have a couple of participants. One little thing that I like to do when I'm running Zoom meetings is I'm on my laptop to run the meeting, and then I actually get on my phone as well as a participant. The main reason for that is it allows me to see what my participants are seeing, right? So especially if I'm sharing my screen, if we're doing some other things, I just kind of always know, I know exactly what they're looking at from their perspective, which sometimes that's hard to kind of tell from your perspective. So it'll take me just a second here on my wife's laptop and my laptop to kind of join. See, my wife is joining now, so you'll see her pop up on our screen into the meeting room here in a second. I'm not sure what. I see people hop in. I can just kind of admit her. So a couple things. Once you have the participant, reason I like to have the participant list up is you've got some options there. So when you put the cursor over a participant, you can kind of mute or unmute them. You also have mute all or unmute all. I will say that unmuting, you don't actually have the power to unmute them. You can click unmute and it will send them a message saying, hey, the host wants you to unmute. Would you like to unmute? Right. So you don't have the power of turning everyone off and on, which is a little bit frustrating at times. But then you look at this more, you have some other options that you have. So here's where you can make someone the co-host. So if you're working with some facilitators that are helping you out, you can make them co-hosts. You can also rename people. A lot of times people might join it. It's a shared computer. It's got their spouse's name as their name. If they don't know how to change their name, you can change it yourself here, or you can just explain to them. If they go to the top right corner of their video, those little three dots gives them the option to kind of rename themselves if they like to. Yeah, so then here's my iPhone kind of coming in. All right. So the nice thing now is I basically have all my computer. I can see kind of what other people are seeing, right? So I tend to have that kind of set up next to my laptop, so I can always be looking and seeing what's projecting out to people. So what I'm going to do here really quick is I'm actually going to make my wife's computer the host, right? So that switches me. So now I'm just a participant. My wife's computer is actually running things. But the reason I want to do that is because now that I'm a participant, you see on the participant list, I actually have a raise hand feature now. You don't see that as the host, but all the participants kind of have that. If I click my raise hand feature, you see I kind of go, the little blue hand goes to the top. If I was lower on the list, or say if you've got 20 people in the meeting, you don't actually see everyone on the participant list. By doing the raise hand, it automatically puts me at the top of the screen. So my wife's computer is the host. I can see now on that participant list, not only is the person with the raised hand on the top of the list with the blue icon, but on their video there's a little blue icon. Right? Lots of people in these meetings, especially if you have a small meeting, 6 or 7 people, you can really just physically have people raise their hand when they want to talk. But if you have a larger meeting, the raise hand feature is kind of a nice feature. It kind of sets the queue in a way, and it makes it so you don't have to see people. Plus, you might, like in this situation, have people that don't want to show their video, right? Or they don't have the technology to show the video, or they're having internet problems, so they have to shut their video down. By using the raise hand feature, it makes it more likely that other people can kind of get in, and you're more likely to have a broader kind of inclusive conversation with that, right? The other quick thing I'll show you is everyone has the option of speaker view and gallery view. So your ungallery view is when kind of the Brady Bunch effect. You can see all the different boxes. If I switch to speaker view, it's just who's speaking at the time, right? So tend to want to keep things at gallery view if you have a small enough group. I think up to 25 people can fit on one screen. But if you have a larger group than that, sometimes the speaker view is useful because then you're not having to look through all the videos to find out who's speaking. It actually pops that up immediately. And you see how my box is yellow right now. That's Zoom shows you where sound is coming from. That's also a particularly important tip that if there's ambient sound, if someone's got someone mowing the lawn outside or a dog barking, the yellow will pop on theirs every once in a while. So that's where you can kind of go in there as the organizer and actually mute it for them, or ask them to mute through the chat. All right, so I'm going to go now and get my wife's computer to make me the host, so I get control again. And I am once again the host, right? So some of the new features that we turned on since we turned them on through the account settings, we have the breakout rooms options and we have the polling options now. So I'll kind of show you those. So the polling options, I didn't set a poll beforehand, but it just kind of pops up this bar, and you can add a question. Again, you can do this beforehand, so they're set. But you can basically ask the question. You can make it a single choice or multiple choices, kind of like a checklist. They can pick more than one, and you just type the answers in. Right? And you can add several questions and kind of work through them if you like, and it just shows. So it allows people it pops up on their screen to ask them the question, and then kind of shows the results. So that can be useful, particularly if you have kind of a quieter group, to get kind of everyone talking. Right? The breakout groups, you click on that, it pops up a screen. You can set it that you're automatically setting people, putting in groups, or if you need to. I know for me, I need at least one of my students in each group, so I'm going to tend to do it manually. What happens at our big meetings is I'm starting the meeting, kind of running the meeting. My wife is actually on the side, popping people in groups with some instructions that I've given her of how to kind of form those groups. But if you do manually, you can decide how many rooms you want to start with. So I'm going to set it at 2 now. It creates the rooms. And then now you go to over to the assign, and you can just kind of assign people to groups. Right? You can also rename the groups if you like, as you saw on there. So you could have tech problems group if you want to kind of play with that idea that we mentioned earlier, right? Once you kind of have it set, I guess I didn't put Tracy in that group. Okay. Once you kind of have it set, you can open all rooms, and what that does, you can kind of see on my screen here, it says the host is inviting you to join breakout room 1, right? So I click on join here, and you'll see my iPhone will disappear from that room. I'll do the same thing with my wife's computer. They have now both been whisked away to their breakout room, and it's just me by myself in the main room. I do suggest that you have kind of a producer, someone, if you're going to do the breakout room, someone who's just running the breakout rooms that doesn't have to be in one, right? So the host is not typically set in a room. I can visit any of the rooms, right? So if you notice this little join button, I can join and I can get whisked and pop in that room with my phone. Right, so I can kind of listen in or join or kind of bounce around the rooms if I want. If I leave room, it takes me back to the main overall session. Right. The other nice thing about breakout rooms is you can actually make broadcast messages across all of them. So it's essentially like our normal CBD meeting where we're starting in a large room and then at some point we go to those small tables. I can pick up the microphone and do quick little time checks, right? So we can just say time check, 5 minutes left. Right, and I broadcast that, and you'll notice it just kind of pops up on everyone's screen in a sense. Time check, 5 minutes left across all the rooms at the same time. And eventually, when I'm ready to close them, I can just close the room. It gives everyone a message that rooms are closing. You have 60 seconds, or I can leave now, and you'll see everyone starting to repopulate the rooms back to the main room. So those are the breakout rooms. You can send everyone to the rooms, or you can kind of send people one at a time. Once you have rooms set, if new people show up, when you hit the breakout rooms, it has just a list of unassigned people, and you can just kind of right-click and put them in there. And you can also, once you have people in there, you can exchange or move people around pretty easily, right, to kind of keep those groups going if you want to try different groups. So then the last thing I'm just going to show you is share screen. If you hit share screen, it basically just pulls up. The screen is my actual, everything that's on my screen as normal, or you can pick individual things that you have up, right? So if I pick that and click share, and again, this is where it's useful to have yourself on your phone because you can see what's being broadcast to other people kind of here in a way, especially if you have multiple kind of screens open in a sense. And typically, can't quite see it here, but normally it has a nice little green bar around which window you have that's actually kind of showing. So if you're moving around the internet and that kind of stuff, sometimes it gets confusing if they're still kind of looking at what you're wanting them to look at. Right? Then we're done with screen sharing, you just do the stop share. Right? One thing that we have found while running these small group discussions online is we don't like to share that much. So share the beginning of the intro, maybe the very beginning of each approach or option. But we want to keep the videos as big as possible because we want people kind of talking to each other and kind of seeing each other. And it's hard enough already to kind of read nonverbals online. So we tend to cut and paste a lot of the data, the questions and the comments into chat to be a much more functional thing. And sending people the documents beforehand, asking them to print it out is a much better way to kind of engage that. Right? With that, those are just some of the key kind of technical behind the scenes stuff that you can add kind of using Zoom to make your process work. Right? Thank you.